Hello guys, welcome to another lighting setup tutorial. I'm Angus. I'm going to show you lighting setup number 5 using tungsten and continuous lighting. This is called side and rear lighting. Okay, if you're not familiar with any of these lighting setups that I've been doing, have a look at the first 4 videos that I show you different ways in which you can light a portrait. Also have a look at the original video which describes all the equipment that I'm using here today. So all this kit, some of it you can loan out from us at college, other bits you can get on eBay and what have you, and I go through that in that video. Okay, without further ado, let's get going on side and rear lighting. This is part 1 of side rear lighting, okay? And I'm going to do a second video, number 6, later on, so check that out as well. So, this side rear lighting video utilises, we've got a redhead going through a screen. If you don't know what a screen is, look at my first video, tracing paper screen. This emulates exactly the same light as a softbox would using flash, but on a much, much cheaper level, but you get the same results. So essentially, you can put one of those, roughly it's not dead side on, but it's sort of much more side on than, let's say, 45 degrees using broad lighting. Okay, so set one of those up on the sort of side, going through a screen to light the right hand side of the model. So that's kind of the key light that we're using. Now I'm going to turn off the rear light. That's my second light that I'm going to be using today, which as I say is currently on. Notice that the key light from the front is giving this soft lighting. Okay, obviously it's going through a screen. My rear light, however, has got no diffusion on, and it's just coming straight out the barn doors, closed down onto the side. Okay, and notice that's slightly sharper lighting. Okay, but slightly more whiter, crisp lighting. Okay, and it's sometimes quite good to mix the two, soft lighting and harsh lighting coming from the rear. It adds a bit more atmospheric and what have you. Great for fashion shoots and portraits alike. Now, notice today I'm using a black background, which is obviously opposite to what I was using in my first 4 videos, which was the white background. And in a little while, I'm just going to go through some methods that you can utilise for lighting black backgrounds. Okay. Now I'm going to turn this key light off. I'm going to slightly dissect what I'm doing here. This is obviously the finished version, okay, of what I've produced today. But as I say, I'm going to turn this light off. I'm just going to give you some tips about shooting on a black background, and I'm going to talk about how to set this rear light up. But essentially, that's what the key light is doing. And that is obviously lighting the right-hand side from the side. Okay. When you shoot on a black background, guys, notice that the problem about shooting on it is that the left-hand side of the face here is just falling off into black. And frankly, if you're shooting somebody, especially obviously with lots of hair as well, I think one of the worst things you can do is just use one light on a portrait utilising a background. Even with a fill as well, I just don't think a fill brings up the other side of the face enough to basically get a bit of form and shape going around the head. You don't want that head to sink off into the black background. So if you want to use a black background, what I'm saying is, option 1 is use this rear light from the back. Okay. Now I'm going to take this away. This is what we call a flag. And the reason I'm using a flag on a lighting stand, it's just a bit of mounting board on a stand, is to essentially stop the stray light from this light coming into the lens of the camera. Okay, it's not good to have lights shining back at the camera in a photo shoot. Okay, you should always flag them off. Okay, and this flag, I haven't got it in the first equipment video, but I'm going to just show you quickly what it is. I got 2 bits of wood. Okay, and I bracketed them together using an angle bracket, and I've made a hole in the top here as well so that this can go onto the lighting stand. But essentially, I put one of these on the lighting stand, like so, and essentially I clipped a bit of mountboard to it. So this just clips like that, okay? And obviously its prime role is to flag that shiny light back away from the camera, okay? So I'm going to make sure the lighting is obviously in my image, there we go. And then all I'm going to do is just make sure that it's taken away so the camera is not visible to the camera, okay? Like so. Okay, so that's the flag for you. Remember guys, we're only really looking at the head and shoulders here, okay? But I'm obviously showing you the wide angle version so you can see what I'm doing. Okay? So, now next, I'm going to talk about the rear lights, okay? And essentially, I'm going to give you two options for shooting on a black background. Okay, obviously, can you see how this key light lights up the side of the head? Yeah? Which is really, really good to, as I say, stop that hair or side of the face falling into black. The two next options is also a method to stop the face and the head falling sort of into the background, losing the shape and form of the head. Okay, so I'm going to show you two options. The first is a floor light. Now, a floor light essentially is I'm going to be utilising a floor stand, which is one of these. Okay, put a sandbag on this, yeah, when you've got it on the floor, because they have they can fall over. Obviously, that's top heavy. And this is one of the lights. This is a Bowen's light that I showed you in my first equipment video. It's got a reflector dish on, so it's giving you a kind of circular sort of projection of light. And I'm going to turn one of the same, obviously, thing on, already set up here behind the model. And so that's option one for a rear light, okay, which adds a little bit of atmosphere, a little bit of sort of radial gradient behind the model, a bit more atmosphere. So that's one thing you can do with your model, add a background light. So you'd have to hire out a third light or have three lights in the kit. The other option for a third light for a background is just from the side. So here we go. Just so this is sort of doing it in a linear fashion from light to dark. Okay, and you can see here that it's again it brings out the form and shape of the model. Okay, so a bit like the rear light. Okay, so it's very it's considered good practice to bring out the form and shape of the model on a black background. Okay, you can always darken that light later in Photoshop or burn in the darkroom. Okay, so it's better to have the light there than obviously not at all. And then if you wanted to lighten up a halo behind a model, if you hadn't done any lighting in the background, it would almost be practically impossible. And if you try and lighten anything up in Photoshop, you start to get grain and noise in the image behind the model. Anyway, that's the finished version. That's something about lighting models on black backgrounds and utilising the rear lights that we have here. Thanks very much, guys. Check out the last part 2 video for side and rear lighting after this. Thank you very much. See you soon.